You ready? You're listening to the Real Pineapple Podcast Network. Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, theys, and gays. This is the Real Pineapple. This is your humble host Hunter here. Hope you're all having a good one. I'm really excited here to talk to my guest today. I've got the director and producer of the new indie film Or Something. I've got I'm gonna go your whole name here because this is what IMDb's giving me. Jeffrey Schroeder, and I've got Dan Blackwell. Gentlemen, how you guys doing today?
Great. Yeah,
Good.
I'm opting for my full name, Jeffrey Scotti Schroeder, because there's some very weird people on the internet named Jeffrey Schroeder.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so
Okay.
yeah, I'd like to
Noted.
differentiate myself from the Google search. You know what I mean?
That's fair. Um,
Yeah,
so thank you again, gentlemen, for taking the time. I
of
really
course.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Dan, since you were tardy, you get to answer the first question.
Oh
Um,
no.
uh, talk to me about this film and as far as the actual like production of it, because something that I really was impressed by, from Jeffrey's perspective, is how well this is directed, especially as we get into the more uptown stuff. But
Yeah.
talk to me about how this project came together.
Yeah, so the two stars of the project, Mary Neely and Kareem Rama, wrote the screenplay. And I think at the time Mary was pretty new to New York City. I think they kind of came up through like the comedy world. So they had met maybe at a comedy show and you know, hit it off, and they were like, hey, we should try to write something together. And they came up with like the bones or something. And then I believe that was finished, and Jeffrey and myself, more so Jeffrey's friend, DP friend Ben Carey, who's an absolute legend in the DP world, linked Jeffrey and Kareem, because Kareem was like, we have this, we really want to make it, but I don't really know how to pull this off.
Fair.
And so that's when Kareem reached out to Jeffrey, and me and Jeff had been working on production stuff at the time for a few years. So we kind of figured out, we're kind of like the go-to guys now in New York when people are like, oh, it's impossible, or like, oh, it's hard, or like, it's New York, it's kind of out of reach. Like we've been in it long enough to kind of know the nooks and crannies, kind of not necessarily like cut corners, but just find the loopholes and kind of,
Yeah.
do it first, ask for forgiveness later type situation. So, filming in New York is definitely different than like LA or Nashville or Austin or something like that, where it's a little more like by the books. So I think I don't want to speak for Jeffrey, he's right here, but Kareem and Jeffrey linked, they obviously hit it off. And then that's when Jeffrey asked me, hey, you want to hop on this thing and help produce it? And before this I had done a few shorts and a lot of like bigger budget commercial stuff, so all kind of in New York, all over the country really. But I saw it as something very achievable without having to um without really having to like make sacrifices where it would show on screen. I knew that we could get it done basically just because, me and Jeff had our backs against the wall in New York productions before. And this was, we had a little bit of money and a little bit of time. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into that, but yeah, so that's kind of how it came to my plate. And then Jeffrey got signed on to direct. And then we also had I got to shout out our other producer, Sophia, who's an absolute boss. She's like a 22-year-old and is just like the most tactile, organized human I've ever seen work. And like her career in whatever she chooses to do. She'll just be an absolute dominator. So I really leaned on her for a lot of stuff. I mean, my approach to producing, especially something like this, is like I like to be like on the ground. You know, I don't like to be behind the computer. I like to be like putting out the fires on set and kind of getting dirty with everybody else. So I don't know
Well,
if that answered your question.
no, it did. What was the biggest fire you had to put out on set?
Oh my God. I mean, how is this a PG related? Is this a
Oh no,
PG
we
rated
can we
podcast
can let
or
the F words fly. Yeah, it's all cussing. It's fine.
I mean, shit, I don't know if I want to throw anyone under the bus, but there is a couple funny things that happen. I mean, I'll give you one. Jeff, you can hop in if this is too much, but there's this one day like we were filming in Central Park and it was like maybe like the third day. So like fatigue has set in. It's long hours, it's French hours, there's no set schedule. I mean, there's a schedule, but you know, we're all kind of doing this like run and gun, super indie, low budget style. And like a PA had just like hit a car, like in a cargo van. And like basically the car she hit, a lady was like, "Hey, that person just like hit my car and like ran off." And like I was like, went back to the PA and I was like, "Did you just hit that car?" And she's like, "Yeah." Just like nothing happened. And like if I were to say that was the craziest thing that happened, like I'd be lying. Just like tiny little shit all the time. I'm sure you hear all the time. But I mean, overall, the vibe was good. It's just like these funny little things that are bound to happen when you get 50 people together working on something, you know?
Damn.
Yeah, I mean, I would say though that it was, I mean, Dan, you and Sophia did a good job of shielding me from a lot of those like, production related issues that always crop up. But like we know when we finished production, we actually look back and we're like, that actually went surprisingly well considering how little money we had and how little resources and the fact that we didn't permit anything but Central Park. Like, our first day, we spent 4 or 5 hours shooting like 14 or 15 pages on the subway without permits. We had two
Oh shit.
cameras. And like, we walked by police, we walked by MTA. And so, yeah, like despite the normal amount of like production things that crop up and like the things that you literally can't control, like it was sleeting, raining, and freezing many of the days. Um, and we were mostly exterior. Like Dan and Sophia really did a good job of like keeping this thing that could have been nearly unachievable, like on the tracks. So, but that's part of a good producer is like, Dan, you weren't informing me of like the like half a dozen hit and runs that happened. Like that was just one of many.
The multiple
Um,
felonies that occurred on set you weren't
yeah,
aware of. Yeah, so that's
yeah, and
that's
I'm thankful for that. Yeah.
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 Good job, Dan. So,
Thank you.
Jeffrey, sir, since you're the director and you're handling, this whole production, one of the things that I love about your directorial style, I love the way you shoot in shadows, and I love the way you use lighting. There's this one shot, and I'm gonna butcher this, so please correct me, but there's a shot like where you're like in this tunnel and they're having this conversation. And I thought that scene in particular is probably my favorite scene as far as how it's shot. Talk to me about your directorial style and kind of how you approach shooting different because this is so heavy on dialogue. You obviously want to showcase, your stars. And I think that especially whether it's that scene where they're kind of under that overpass or whether they're in the diner, I think you nail that in spades, like in every scene. Can you kind of talk to me about your shooting style and how you wanted to shoot them?
Sure. I mean, listen, it takes a village. It's for me to take credit for all that would be a mistake. I'll back up a little bit. I really responded to this script because on the page there's nearly no exposition. So it's 67. The shooting draft was like 67 pages, but it's not like a 1 minute per page type of thing because it's literally just blocks dialogue. And so when you get that, that's exciting for a director, because you can say, all right, I can put my imprint on this thing. And you can sort of shape the vision of it. And a large part of shaping that vision and how it ended up looking was due to extensive conversations and shot listing and like poring over shot deck. That it's are you familiar with shot deck? And so like with my DP Jeff Leeds Cohen, who is an absolute dominator. I mean, I've never seen anybody do as good of handheld as him. And he did it without, we were looking at references, like link letter references, and the Before Sunrise trilogy was like a big source of inspiration for us, and that was all on Steadicam. And so Jeff insisted on doing it handheld, so no Steadicam. He also didn't even use an easy rig, like it's all truly handheld. And so like those things and those decisions definitely inform how it ends up looking on screen. Also, when you shoot in New York almost always, if you want it to or not, ends up being a central character in the film. And this is very specific to New York, because I really feel like it's like, you don't shoot in New York shoots you, these things really inform the look, the feel, the overall vibe, and all the things that like you can control it, and you can play up the New York of it, or you can play it down. I wanted to lean into it, but like with that particular scene that you liked, it was just like finding atypical areas in Central Park. We're on the northern part of Central Park because a huge hassle to shoot in the southern part of Central Park. That's where all the tourists are. The northern part of Central Park, Central Park is so fucking big. Like it's like a different park altogether. Like, it's uptown. It's not highly trafficked. It's really kind of a ghost town as compared to the lower part. And it's not picturesque. It's picturesque to me, but it's not picturesque in the way that you would assume Central Park is, right? And so I was just simply walking around where we were scouting, and I just got a feeling. I'm like, let me just go over there, because I hadn't seen that part. And I found this beautiful sort of a underpass, or like the tunnel, just a walking tunnel. And, we had definitely had discussions about like when to shoot that. We're on the Sunseeker app, like kind of doing the math, like, okay, if we're here at this time, we'll get this nice bit of light coming through. And then on top of that, Eli, our gaffer, Dan, do you know how to pronounce his last name? I don't want to butcher it, but Eli French, do you know? You're muted. We'll get back to you on that, but maybe you can put his full name in the notes. But he is incredible. He had worked with Sean Price Williams on various projects, and he also just major kudos to him to enhance every location, whether it was easy to light or difficult to light. He always found a way to enhance the look and really lean into the limitations that we had. And those limitations and those the inconveniences of shooting in New York, like you can lean into them and make them really work for you, or you can let them like make your film look shitty. And I feel like on every level, we like really, really did end up achieving that. A lot of people would say, well, you can't go our first day. Why would you go shoot on a working subway at like whatever time it was, 10 a.m. And we just did it anyways. And cops were like, oh, you're shooting a movie? We're like, yeah. And just like we'd ask people kindly, like, hey, do you mind? I was like, let's just shoot this at the end of a car so that we don't have to deal with people as much. And the people were in and out of the cars. And, we only had to ask a couple people, because we're doing like roundies, right? Because for continuity, we had to do it this way. And, we were doing a roundie at the same spot at a particular stop. And then the guy behind the counter at the booth was like, come here to me. And I'm like, oh shit, we're in trouble. And he's like, no, I seen you guys come through here. Like, I'm going to open the door for you, because he knew that we had already paid.
Oh, that's cool.
Like, and like everyone was just like cool. Like I think everyone is also like really caught up in this idea that like you can't shoot in New York, and to that I would say that's absolutely false, because we had a, we didn't have a, it was, we shot it in 6 days. So we
That
had
was my
6
next
days.
question. Damn. Okay. That's
Yeah, we had
quick.
six, we had, yeah, we did like 11 and a half, 12 pages average per day, something like that. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't have a huge sample size to say, fuck it, just shoot in New York, but like we had 6 whole last days and they were packed, every minute of them. And it was strategic. We ended up permitting Central Park because I just know that's a place where they have staff that goes around and keeps tabs on Central Park. Everywhere else, I was like, let's just do this run and gun, like let's do it our way. And I feel like that ended up being a benefit to us.
Oh yeah. Dan, back to you, sir. Was there something logistically, film wise, that you guys maybe just weren't able to crack, or maybe time just didn't allow for, that you had to scrap? Or for you, was everything pretty smooth outside of the hit and runs?
I mean, I mean, besides the multiple felonies committed, I think it was pretty smooth. I mean, another thing to touch on too is like when we were crewing this thing up, like me and Jeff have been in like kind of the commercial world for a little bit. So we kind of like went to our main guys who we have relationships with and work with. And we're kind of like, just gave it to them straight. We didn't like overpromise anything. We're like, hey, you're signing up for a 6-day feature in like brick ass cold New York City. It's going to be mostly exteriors. It's all dialogue, and we're going to be outside. And yes, just tell me yes, and like if you say no, like I totally get it. So like we kind of had to have that conversation with our crew like from the jump. So kind of everyone knew what they were kind of getting into. So as far as like logistics goes, it's just the same like kind of boring stuff that no one really talks about when making films. Like where do we hold talent? Where can we hold crew when they're not being needed? Like how are we going to feed these people, and where when we're shooting up in Central Park and we can't afford holding at the Sheraton or Four Seasons. So it was
Where
it
do
was
people
a
go piss? Yeah, like
yeah,
where do
just
people?
just kind of all that stuff. And I mean, no real horror stories, honestly. Like Jeff said, like I think people are deterred from shooting in New York because they think all this stuff is impossible. And logistically, it is tricky. But like if you have a down crew and people who are willing to kind of get dirty and scrappy, like you can make really cool shit here because like Jeff touched on, like New York is such a good character. And just shooting in New York right there elevates your project like tenfold. So logistically, yeah, just kind of all the non-sexy stuff, like where to hold people, where's the closest bathroom, where to eat if you get time to like puff down like a bodega sandwich, just stuff like that. But
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 Dan, like we didn't really like miss anything out of the script though. Like I feel, unless you can
oh
tell me
no,
otherwise, like
like
we
I
got
mean
everything shot.
yeah, we got everything shot. We didn't have to really sacrifice much. I think we just got really lucky, but we also were like going into this too, like even at a broader scope, like when you see a script or like when you're developing a script, like the writing part of it, you shouldn't think of budgetary constraints, but like production wise, you're like, is this achievable? Because my brain goes like, okay, where are we holding people? If there's a company move, how are we getting there? How much time is that going to eat away? So we really were strategic in our shooting days. Like, okay, we're shooting in this vintage store. Let's find the next interior kind of down the street. So instead of eating up like 3 hours with the company move, we're only, walking gear half a mile down the road, shoot there. Then we'll do exterior shots around the corner on that street. So it was all contained. We almost made our way from like central Brooklyn all the way up to like Harlem, basically, if that makes sense. Like we
Yeah.
weren't going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. We scheduled it wise. And also I got to give a shout out to our absolute G, first AD Flo, who's just like a wizard. So he can take credit for all of that because he was the one who scheduled like when and where we're shooting, but that all had to make sense as we're moving uptown
Okay.
with the film
Okay.
story wise. But yeah, we didn't cut out like everything that made it to the film. Like we didn't leave anything on the cutting board, like
Okay.
on the cutting room,
Okay.
basically.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
yeah, we're
God.
stoked on that. And that, I mean, that again, shout out to our editor, Pete O's, who's just a legend. He's like a director now, or he is a director, filmmaker. He's been in South by Lower East Side. Like he has amazing film that just came out, and I'm sure he's working on like amazing other projects. So I think Jeff had mentioned like this might have been his last like full blown like editing gig. So we were really lucky to get him on.
Oh yeah. Jeffrey, back to you, sir. So because your stars also wrote the film, um, and did a great job. I thought the dialogue. I'm a sucker for films that are very dialogue heavy, something like a Frost Nixon, and I thought that the interplay between the two of them was absolutely excellent. Does that make it harder to direct them because you have those people who might go like, "This is my script and I know it better than you." Like, is there how does that give and pull kind of give and take kind of work from a directorial perspective?
I think we had heard so many times that like you can't do this thing, it's not achievable. Like, what are you doing shooting a feature in 6 days? Like anything that would have been maybe perceived from the outside as something that would be a challenge. Like I just had a mindset of making it work for us. And same goes for the script and your specific question, which is like, no, it was great that they wrote it because this is first of all, this is very much them. It's like a version of them, in script form. And these are also based on real conversations they had. So they sort of jotted them down. Or like, when they sat down to write the script, they pulled back from like conversations that they really had. And that's why it works so well because these were, an elevated or an edited version of what they had already spoken about. And so that was another reason why we were able to get this done in such a short amount of time and have it be effective. They are basically speaking lines from conversations that they had already had. And so for me, my job was like, okay, we're gonna just rehearse the living shit out of this thing, so that by the time they get on set, like they can be off book. And so for me, directing wise, I was already so confident in the script that like, and all the rehearsals that we did, I've heard this metaphor of like just being like a tuning fork. So like I'm basically like setting up the like guardrails for them and giving them notes and adjustments on some things that they might not be picking up because they're so in the character while filming. But I actually just used it as something that helped us immensely. They just knew the script so well. And yeah, it's just sort of me being there to enhance and like also shape the look and the feel of it and the pacing of it and the overall vibe. And while like my next one, I'm gonna be a writer on and direct it. That'll be a different beast. But for this, I think it helped us actually.
Last question for both of you. Given the subject matter of some of these conversations, because there's some heavy conversations that happen here that I was pleasantly surprised by, and I was like, okay, I'm happy you're going here. And considering the fact that they're strangers when they first meet, I love that even more. These conversations are that deep. Um, is there a central message, a moral, a piece of dialogue? What would you like your audience to take away from this film when the credits roll? Dan, I'll start with you, sir.
Oh man, that's a loaded question.
That's why I asked it.
I, I think a couple things. I think my read on the film is like if you get past the topical kind of walk and talk like New York as like a character, I think at the end of the day, like, and if you're a New Yorker in particular, like I always say like you can have the craziest shit going on in your life and you step outside to go run an errand and like no one will blink an eye because no one gives a shit about you in New York. Like it's sadly like true. So when the feeling I get with this film is like everybody is, I hate this term, but like is their own main character in their like own story. So it's like just kind of the everyday occurrences that you might be like having like super filled anxiety day or like some crazy shit might be happening personally, but then you go for a walk in New York and like no one cares and no one sees any of that. So you're kind of like by yourself. It's kind of like a lonely story if I'm that's my read on it,
Okay.
you know. It's kind of like these people are going through so much shit personally, but no one would ever know unless they were having these conversations. So maybe that at the end of the day, it's, you know, don't judge a book by its cover, like get to the root of things and actually like have these really deep conversations with people because you learn a lot more about them, I guess is the short answer to that.
Oh, I like that. Well said. Jeffrey, what about you?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, I think that everybody is to kind of piggyback on Dan said, I think everybody is multidimensional, and I think that everyone has their sort of own backstory. And I think in like this day and age of just like ultra consumable content and just like basically Instagram and TikTok as like a low level like narcotic, you know, like just like numbing us. I think that we've gotten away from just like sitting and just actually talking with another person. And so I think, you know, I want people to understand that um you know, just simply sitting with somebody, whether you know them or not, and having a conversation with them, it can be really, really therapeutic, you know? And so also like, yeah, you just can't judge a book by its cover. And I think that like this, you know, having been in post on this and thinking about this so critically for so long, it made me sort of stop and want to just like have actual conversations with people versus like a quick text exchange or an Instagram message or whatever. So that's what I sort of took out of it.
Love that.
Yeah.
Um, Jeffrey, Dan, thank you so much, gentlemen, for taking the time to talk with me today.
Of
This was a
course.
really great way to start my day. I appreciate you both. If you could please
Yeah,
tell
man.
people, Dan, I'll start with you. If you could please tell people where they can see the film and then where they can find you if you're on socials before I let you get out of here.
Yeah, sure. So we're opening the inaugural Downtown Film Festival this Friday.
Nice.
That's
Unfortunately,
tomorrow. Yeah.
that's tomorrow.
Yeah.
Uh, Still got to get my fit together, but yeah, that's sold out, and it's really cool. If you go to their Instagram page, it's at the Downtown Festival. The people involved are just incredible, and it's basically like the exact people we want to be in business with and the people that we want seeing our film. Then we're premiering at Bushwick Film Fest. Tickets are also sold out for that. They added us into a bigger theater at Williamsburg Cinemas. That sold
Hell
out.
yeah.
So there's a wait list for that. And then we're going to SCAD down in Savannah, which is pretty cool because I heard it's like very industry heavy. So that'll be like kind of a different vibe than like the New York stuff. And it's close to my hometown, so I'm really excited about that one. That one's premiering November 1st right now. I think the full lineup will come out tomorrow. So if you could check all their social channels, I believe there is a wait list for the Bushwick one if like people drop out or resell their tickets. And then yeah, just trying to ride this festival one. Me and Jeff are in development for our next one that we're really excited about. And
Okay.
my social is at Drod Blackwell, just how it's spelled, DRODBLACKWELL. But there's only surfing photos on there. I keep my work based. You can check out our website, deepcutfilms.xyz, for our commercial stuff while we're kind of growing this narrative branch as well.
All right, right on.
Yeah.
Jeffrey, what about you, sir?
Yeah. Oh, but to answer your original question, yeah, I don't know how people can see this, so we're hoping that maybe there's a like the dream would to be have it like get a distributor and have it on streaming. But after these three festivals, I think we'll probably consider a few other festivals if they'll have us.
Nice.
And then it's sort of like a TBD thing, but I'm really hoping that there will be a way for everyone to consume it. And then yeah, fingers crossed. Thank you for that. And yeah, my social, I'm on Instagram. It's Jeffrey Schroeder fan page. I'm the admin of my own fan page.
Nice.
Yeah. It's JEFFREYSCHROEDER fan page.
Boom. Jeffrey, Dan, as someone who watched the film this morning, okay, that's a lot. I watched it last night and I watched it again this morning.
Nice.
I actually enjoyed it more the second time. But again, gentlemen, good luck on the festival circuit. I hope this does well. And yeah, hopefully we have you guys on again for the next project. But again, thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks
thanks,
so
man. I
much for
really
having us.
appreciate it.
All
Throw
right, guys.
throw a review up there on Letterbox for us.
Oh,
It's on Letterbox.
I actually already have, and I'll email y'all. But yes, I do have that. But thank you so much again, gentlemen, and hey, good luck for the premiere tomorrow.
Thanks so much. Take care, man.
Thanks,
Yeah,
man. Have a good
cheers.
one.